Hey, I'm Jason Groth, and you're watching Time to Connect.
Hey, Jason and Will, thank you so much for taking time to connect today.
Thanks for having us, man.
Thank you, John. Appreciate
It's a,
it.
it's a pleasure. I know we're all so busy these days, so I'm very grateful for your time. Man, I saw the Houston show. What was that? A couple of months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, of Magnolia and Johnson, and holy crap, was that good! And I knew right then I wanted to get you guys on the podcast. Will, this is your third time. You have the record now of the most times on my podcast. Uh, so
Your check
thank
is
you.
in the mail. I'll mail your check soon.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks for
But
putting up with
Jason, putting up with you. Oh yeah, right. I think that goes the other way around. But Jason, this is your first time, so I usually like to have people kind of introduce themselves just a little bit up front. I will have links in the show notes, but since this is Will's third time, also since I do have a book coming out about Will, I think most of the people probably watching this podcast have a good sense of who he is. But if you'll tell us a little bit about who you are, you don't have to go on too long, but just kind of a potted bio, where you grew up and how you got into music, etc. Who you are.
Sure. Yeah. Jason Groth, part of Magnolia and Johnson Electric Co. Currently part of Magnolia Electric Co. Songs Ohia. That whole run of stuff with our good friend Jason Molina. Uh, Originally from Elgin, Illinois, and lots of my family's from Chicago. But I grew up in Central Indiana. Uh, Discovered music pretty early. It was the first thing I ever collected, using birthday money for the Return of the Jedi soundtrack and Weird Al Yankovic's first record from a Kmart in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in like '83. Started playing saxophone when I was 9. Went to a private Christian school. Saxophone was the closest thing to distorted electric guitar I could think of, and the private Christian school didn't seem to notice that that's why I was doing it. Got into the Doors real early, which led me to the Velvet Underground and Frank Zappa and Captain Beefheart. And then Nirvana happened, and I realized that I didn't have to be relegated to school bands to play music. And I started my own little 3-piece band in high school, writing my own songs, just trying it out. Didn't realize you weren't really supposed to do that, and so I just ended up doing a lot of stuff, like booking community shows. I think we made 4 records in 2 years in high school, and didn't realize that most people didn't. I'm not sure they were good, but we did it. Went to college at Indiana University, where I was immediately swept up in the beginnings of Secretly Canadian Records, mostly because all those guys worked at the cafeteria in the dorm where I ate a lot, and got into student radio there. Basically was in college to play music. Ended up with a history and English degree, but during college had a basement venue where we did lots of touring band shows, had a studio in the basement. Graduated, worked full time for a year, and then that was around the time that all the bands I was in kind of got signed to little labels, and about a year before Molina asked me to join Songs Ohio. Since then, right now I'm talking to you from the Library of Congress, where I am the curator of the moving image section currently, but I've worked at a bunch of academic libraries helping other people record music in audio studios and video studios. And have been in a variety of bands that you can find on various streaming services like The Impossible Shapes, which were also on Secretly Canadian, a band called the Coke Dares, which still exists and has all 3 of us are members of Magnolia, and others. But yeah, just here to help both make music for myself and anybody who wants to hear it, but then also help other people find art and connect with it in a cool way.
Right on, man. And which Library of Congress are you at right now?
I'm at the National Audiovisual Conservation Center in Culpeper, Virginia.
Wow, man, that's very cool. How long have you been there? How long have you had that gig?
I started in this past August 2025. So when you and I met, I was 3 weeks into this role. And I've heard that it takes 5 years to feel like you're not new. And I'm guessing that's true. So
Yeah. Very cool. How excited are you about Indiana, about IU football?
you're the first person to tell me I should be. So very
Really?
excited then. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, really glad you told me I should look into whatever is going on there.
They're
Like I said,
leading. They're leading in all the stat categories, of course, and he can name them all.
yeah, well, I'll
All
say
of the
this:
stats.
when I was a freshman at IU, no one went to those games. So I remember getting season passes to the football games, and really just going to be alone. Like it's like I really need to get away from my roommates. I'm going to go to the IU football game.
I know I won't run into any friends there. That's amazing. That's hilarious.
I
Well,
will say this. I'm glad you brought that up, though. The last time I went to an IU football game, I went because Todd Rundgren was in town, and I was TAing for a class that he talked in, and he led the show band middle of the game, and I totally went just to see him do that. So
wow.
I have no idea if we won or lost. Really proud, not very proud of my former institution for a lot of reasons, but I'm glad they're doing well in football.
Well, it could be worse. You could be an ex-Texas A&M guy. We're not too. I didn't go to school there, but I taught there for many years, and we're not too proud of what's going on here right now. It's a cluster, let me tell you.
Yeah, things could be better.
Uh, yeah. Well, let's talk about this collaboration. How did this happen? I want to go back and ask you guys both a little bit about, how you met Molina and what that was like and what the recording with him was like, even since you both done that, I guess, separately. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about this book. Erin has actually agreed to be a guest on the podcast at some point, although she has a new book coming out that she'll talk about. But this is good stuff, folks. Anyone who hasn't read it, if you're a Molina fan, you really should. And Will, little shout out to you, man. I'm telling you, the essay you have in here, so good. In fact, I used it literally as a template when putting together the book about you. I asked people they all said to me, what do you want what do you want? I said, read that essay, and that'll give you an idea of what you want. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for the kind word. Thank you.
So let's go in chronological order. Jason, when did you meet Molina, and what was that like?
I met Molina in the late 90s. I think I saw Songs Ohia play in the student radio station at IU in maybe 97.
Mhm.
Maybe met him that night, but like he and I actually met in maybe 1998 when he was working at a guitar store called Roadworthy Guitar and Amp in Bloomington, RIP, or maybe not RIP. I don't know if it exists anymore. It definitely isn't in the same location. Um, that's when we first talked. He actually did. I'm lying. The first time we met, I bought a Pussy Galore compilation from him at a CD store where he was working, and he made fun of me for it. But our first like real conversation was at the guitar
man.
store. Yeah, he at the guitar store, he talked me into buying a 1981 Gibson Explorer because it was like he thought I could handle a guitar that looked like Metallica could play it. And this was right when he was about to record, or maybe had just recorded Access and Ace. And just making that like personal connection, we would see each other. He was living in Bloomington and other places, but he was often there. We didn't, so we were buds. We weren't really, I wouldn't say we were friends. We sort of became friends. I was always an admirer. Like I was paying attention to what was coming out. That first Songs Ohia single blew my mind. And he just seemed larger than life to me. So him like being so open to connecting with me at the guitar store. I mean, we talked forever. Everyone will tell you who has met Molina, that he would talk your ear off, and he did. And it was charming. And, I was a little starstruck, but, I was in this band called The Impossible Shapes that he dug. And he moved back to Bloomington, I think in 2002. And we started seeing each other a lot. So he would come to those Shapes shows, but he was a really big fan of the Coke Dares, which is Mark and Pete and I from Magnolia. And we'd been maybe a band for 9 months at that point. And so he would, to the point where like he would jump up on stage while we were playing to take the mic and sing our 30-second songs or whatever. We started really talking about music then. There was a festival in Bloomington called Bloomington Fest, and we both, like the Impossible Shapes and Jason, played it in 2002. I remember him doing a really good. It was a lot of Didn't It Rain material, maybe some stuff from the Magnolia Electric Company record that hadn't come out yet. And it was just him and deluxe reverb with a lot of tremolo on it. And it's just like watching him captivate that room of 300 people or whatever by himself was super inspiring. And after that show, we just talked about Neil Young for a long time. And I happened to remind him or tell him that I was in a Neil Young album cover band called the Cinnamon Girls, and invited him out to see us play Zuma. And he came, and lore has it that he was sitting at a table with Chris Swanson from Secretly Canadian, and while we were playing, I would guess Danger Bird, because I know he loves that one. He leaned over to Chris and just said, "This is my band." And like a couple months later, at a show, maybe the Coke Dares were playing, he just invited me to be in Songs Ohia. So it was a quick friendship. Like he made friends quickly, and like was good at either pretending or believing that he knew you really well, which when you're a receptive audience, and I was, it felt really special, and we kind of hit it off immediately, and started playing shows with him in December of 2002, and then until we stopped playing shows.
Yeah. How long did you have to deliberate when he asked you to be in the band?
I bet, now that you mention it, I wonder if I like negotiated somehow.
Really? Because I sort of expected your answer to be about 3 seconds, but
yeah, no, I mean it was fast. I definitely said yes, but like if I remember correctly, he maybe pre-negotiated, because I think his ask was, "Would you like to be in Songs Ohia?" And then I think he immediately said, "We're already booked for South by in 2003, and the Impossible Shapes should come and open for all those shows."
Oh, wow.
It was as if he knew that there in Bloomington, everyone's in everybody's band. I think this was probably true in Denton too. And but there was always this fear that you might be poaching, and I think Molina had been probably accused of that in the past. So he just like leaned into it and was like, "This is not poaching. This is collaboration." But yeah, it was. I mean, it was probably less than 3 seconds. It was like, of course I want to do that. Like he had given me a copy of the Magnolia Electric Company record already, and I couldn't believe anybody I knew was writing songs like that. And knowing that I would get to promote that, to be in the band that played those songs, it just blew my mind.
I'm going to steal that line, by the way, for a song. It's not poaching, it's collaboration. That's a good line. Will, were you at that 2003 show at South by?
Yeah, is that the one at Buffalo Billiards?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, that's the night I decided to get a Reverb Deluxe. I thought those amplifiers sound really good. I need to stop doing so much heavy lifting with this 212 cabinet and on this whole production. I could just scale back to a Reverb Deluxe. And by the way, this band sounds phenomenal. It was a great night. So yeah, I was there. I think there's a series of South bys in there that it's getting blurrier as time goes, but I think it was the next one. I want to say it was 04 that I met Molina on the corner of Red River and 6th, and we were standing in mixed company. And
is that kind of Emos, somewhere around Emos?
Yeah, it's right across the street, as a matter of fact. So that would put it at the northwest corner of the intersection. But he's wearing an army green kind of overshirt and some like a black t-shirt with some sparkly lettering on it, and he extends his hand and says, "Songwriter, right?" I said, "Yeah." And we had known of each other.
You could say that to half the people in Austin.
Yeah, right? Anyone around here.
Yeah.
Well, we talked for a little while, and I mean, I had seen them play a time or two prior to that, but we realized that we had a number of people in our orbit that were similar, just common threads. And I quickly expressed that some of his recordings had kind of gotten me through some long stretches of European touring, had been sort of a form of company and counsel and solace over the course of like a 7-weeker in Europe. And it was just one of those immediate relationships with a person's songs that you knew was going to carry on for decades. There was something timeless about it. And so we didn't really keep in touch right after that meeting. It wasn't until 2007 when I went to see Magnolia at Emo's small room. I think it was right in the wake of ACL Fest. And the city is just sort of collectively catching its breath. And, you know, like a lot of folks' sights are off of music after a week of ACL Fest, which for me personally was a perfect time to go and see music. It could not have been better. It was a weeknight show. They were in amazing form, and Molina and I wound up talking at the merch booth for a while. And it was, you know, you're going back to his tendency to talk for a while. I mean, it was like one of those Doublemint commercials where the parade's closing down behind you, you know, and the folks are sweeping the place up, and the folks are just still talking. They're just still in it. The house lights are up. They've screamed at everyone to get out of there several times, but we just couldn't stop talking. And it was at his suggestion right then and there. He wrote his name and his Hotmail address and phone number down on a small business card and said we should make a record sometime. And I said, okay, well, great. You know, let's talk in a few days. And sure enough, you know, lo and behold, I think within 72 hours, I had an email from him, and we were getting down to business of making plans. So that was that.
Now, did you meet Jason Groth at that time too?
We had met, I think, a time or two prior. I feel bad. I don't remember the exact time. When did we first shake hands?
Dude, I don't know. And I think it was a Centromatic show, and it may have been in Chicago, in the early 2000s. But
alrighty.
I was just a face in the crowd then. I don't think I think we talked. I don't know. There's several things I remember, but I feel like you've just been in my life forever.
It was one of those, like, one of like 271 shows that we played at Shuba's, perhaps.
Yes, probably was a Shuba's show. I think you and I both lived at Shuba's for a few years.
So how did this? I can tell this conversation could go on easily for 3 hours, and I'm not gonna do that to you guys. So let me try to shepherd this thing a little bit. How did the idea for this collaboration come about? Who first had the idea?
Sounds like Molina did. If he was the one asking to make the record.
No, are you talking about Molina's Ghost here? I mean the Magnolia Johnson collaboration.
Well, no, that's what I mean. I mean, I think that Jason and Will deciding to make the Molina and Johnson record, you know, that resulted in not only a great record, but but also a tour that didn't happen,
right?
Because of Jason's issues. You know, I think Jason, you know, as far back as he was, it's hard to talk about this because there's no, I've had to look at email to see exactly how he did or did not invite us to the session, for example. And in fact, before a show that Magnolia and Johnson played in Asheville, I discovered one where he did indeed say he wanted us to go to the session, but then would just never give us any specifics about it. Not that he didn't want us there. It's just the way it's just the way he worked. He's very on the fly. But there was excitement. I think, you know, a few of us were scheduled to go on that tour, and that tour didn't happen. And not to get too dark, but the dark is the truth. We were there was never a moment between 2009 and 10 when after that tour got canceled, which Will has more information about. But I was seeing it from a band member who had just gone on 2 harrowing tours with Jason at the at the height of the kind of the worst and undiagnosed alcoholism part of his life, potentially. So I didn't have much hope that the tour was going to happen as a person who wasn't even going on it. And yet I think Mikey, who was supposed to go on it, who's in Magnolia, and I were talking about, like, I wonder how we make this up. Like, what happens if Jason has to cancel this because he's so sick, And then, it was unclear to me, or I'm sure it was unclear to Will about what was going on. But flash forward, so the tour gets canceled, and our booking agent Eric Carter, who's booking Magnolia and Johnson now, was like on us in a nice way, like, hey, we need to make up for this tour. We need to do this tour again. When Jason died, Will and I think I emailed Will about like funeral stuff. I know Will played a memorial show that raised some money, right out because he couldn't make it to Jason's funeral. And the conversation, it didn't really stop, but like it did restart. Was it 2014 in the fall when Centromatic and Elephant Micah went on tour together?
Yeah, that's right. That was December of 2014.
Yeah. And so Will and I were playing at a house. Like it was a house in Baltimore, and Will and I finally had a chance to sit down and, sit and really hash everything out. And I think that's where I think the idea that one day we would get together and play those songs. The Magnolia guys had done some memorial shows for Jason at that point, and Will was just a natural, like, we wanted him there, and timing just wasn't working out. So, I wouldn't say that it was the unfortunately canceled tour that started it, but we had been talking about it since then. And then, in Jason's unfortunate passing, like, Will and I really resumed those conversations in 2014. Do you think that's true, Will?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that 2014 tour was pretty pivotal for both of us, not just with regard to music or potential collaborations or anything. I think it kind of reconnected us as friends, and we needed to sort of explore one another's experiences of his passing, where we were at the time, and it was kind of our first chance to kind of compare notes and talk in the wake of it. A few years later, I guess it would have been fall 2019. A friend of ours, Mike McAfee, was helping organize an event in Bloomington Music Festival. Was it called Bloomington? Was it Bloomington Music or it was the thing that
Bloomington Music
played,
Expo.
Music Expo? Thank you. At any rate, he came forward and asked if we would be interested in collectively doing a Memorial Electric Co style show as kind of the musical centerpiece of the event. And of course, my answer was absolutely yes. Tell me when and where to be. So 6 months later, maybe 5 months later, we all convened up there in Bloomington and rehearsed on a Saturday night, maybe, or a Friday night, and then we played the show on Saturday. It was such a natural fit through the rehearsal. I really thought, there were numerous guests singing different songs, and I had my 3 prepared, and I figured I'd play my 3, or I think 5. There were 2 more from the Molina and Johnson record. But I figured, I'd play those and kind of see myself out to the crowd and cheer the show along. But standing there as we were going through all the songs, I realized I've known these songs subconsciously for decades now, and I might as well just stand here and play guitar and try to support the cause. Yes, if you guys don't mind. So I stayed, and I think I only sat out for a couple of songs, but otherwise it all fell together so naturally. And some of the songs, I think we only had to run once. But it was almost eerie how things kind of fell together musically that evening. And then the show went off great. We parted ways the next day and kind of had a handshake deal to potentially do more in the fall of 2020. And of course, just weeks later, the world locked down, and that changed everything and delayed everything. But since that time, we just stayed in touch, almost as a matter of like, not if, but when shall we get back together and do this again. We felt like we owed it to ourselves not unlike Molina and I felt like we owed it to ourselves to make a second record. I mean, some of our final conversations and letters written to each other uh, touched upon the idea of like we should circle back and make a second record and go tour it. We felt like we owed it to each other. So there was something that sort of paralleled that with the Magnolia guys. Even it's just like we owe it to ourselves to do some more shows. This was so much fun and so gratifying, and I think cleansing and joyous and heartbreaking. It was all of it in the course of an hour and a half of playing those songs in Bloomington that day, to where we really wanted to take it around a little bit more. And I think essentially that's kind of what brought us to September and that batch of shows in Texas, and now even more shows here down the line.
Typical Will Johnson humility, Jason. If you all don't mind, I'll keep playing with you. Yeah. Now, Jason,
Yeah,
were you playing with Elephant Micah?
I was.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
cool. I
yeah.
didn't realize
Joe
that.
and
Okay.
Jason and Joe were buds. Jason Molina and Joe O'Connell were friends, and I
I
played
was
on a couple.
obsessed. I was obsessed with the Louder Than Now record that they had put out
Mm,
slightly before that,
Yeah.
and it was Centromatic's final tour, and they were the first idea that I came up with for support on that tour. I figured, it's our last tour. We get to pick all the openers, or, what are you going to do? Fire us? We're picking everybody. So Elephant Micah was number one on the list.
Wow.
And very fortunately, not only were they able to do it, but Jason was in the band. So it was like multiple blessings there.
that was a good tour. Thank you for inviting us.
Of course.
We even I
Absolutely.
think we used, I think we were in the Magnolia van for that tour too.
I watched every show. I mean, I did not take a night off. I watched every set. So
Man.
I'm so jealous. I wish I would have been there. So let me ask you a few questions about Jason, if I may. Uh, so he was pretty obsessed with ghosts. Yeah.
Hmm.
Did he really believe in ghosts? And in what way did he believe in ghosts, do you think? Maybe that's a Jason question.
I don't know. That sounds like a will question to me.
Okay. Okay.
But I'll throw in my 2 cents. I think so. Jason grew up with in a family that I think his dad. I can't remember if his dad was a history teacher or not, but like history loomed large for Jason. Like
Yeah.
when we played the Charlottesville show a few month ago here in Virginia. It reminded me of the like him pointing out every Civil War battlefield and talking about the real connection he felt with the people who had worked or toiled or did, the people of the past who still exist as having been formative for the now. So I think and that was true for him with ghosts in that everything that anyone has done still exists in some way or another, for good or for ill. Ghosts that are both positive and haunting, I think, are something that Jason believed in. Like he was superstitious, and I think that superstition was really maybe born out of empathy. Like he wanted the best for things and people, but also had I think a tough childhood. Dealt with his own ghosts that were haunting him personally. But I think it was like I think he believed in the power of what had happened and honoring what had happened, whether that was a human or an event or an idea. Um, and so I think ghost means more than just the thing that he would also do to us. He had a thing called the believer. He said that I'll explain. He said the believer was a concept that he and his brother came up with to prank each other. But the believer was the prank in the hotel room that you didn't expect. Sometimes in the form of what like a ghost, like a ironing board set up with a sheet over it to scare you if you walked in late, as like a big brother thing. So like I think ghosts on all levels, like he used them as a metaphor. They actually were around. They were the feeling of being connected for good or for ill, and also a thing he would employ not only as an image but as like a literal figure to scare us if we stayed out partying too late after a show.
He did. He was something of a prankster, was he not?
Oh my God. Yeah. You had to be on your guard. Yeah. And in fact, I don't have it in here. I keep meaning to bring it. After he died, like me and Jonathan Cargill, who was one of the founders of Secretly and a good friend of Jason's, played on a couple of the records, and just a great dude. We cleaned out Jason's apartment, and there was a like little banshee thing hanging in like he always had these kind of figures, this ghost banshee little figure that I keep in my home office or any office to remind myself of Jason, but also to remind myself to keep on my toes because someone could turn the desk into some sort of goblin that will scare me when I walk back in if I don't pay attention too much.
When you have the members of Shearwater on the podcast, you can interview them about the pranks, I suppose. That might
Oh
be
my God.
that's like a double episode.
Okay, so you pulled a lot on Shearwater, guys.
It's funny that Will. I have interviewed I need to interview Thor and Kim, but I have interviewed everybody about that, and it's a 3-year project at this point to really go over that time with Shearwater
I
and
mean, I
how it.
only know a few incidents, but I do know that it got to a point where Shearwater had to start parking their van far, far away from the venue, out of sight and distant lots, just to make sure that it was harder to find, so that the pranks would hopefully they would ease off the gas on the van pranks.
Wow.
Even you saying it makes me anxious again. I like just like as the little brother in the band being like, please don't do this. This is my van. Please don't invite the wrath. And Will, as you know, Shearwater got not only the last laugh, but the last most lingering laugh in that war. And John, just as a not to go too deeply into it, but it resulted in me in Tucson, Arizona, at a self-service car wash using one of those really strong like power washing things to get fish and brisket out of the axle of my van.
Yeah.
So
The
we
movie,
lost that war.
the movie Grumpy Old Men taught us a lot.
Yeah, there's more song lyrics there. Fish and brisket in the axle.
Yeah,
That sounds like a
that's
Will Johnson line right there.
That's the box set. There's going to be another box set.
There you go. There you go.
When we finally make that record about grumpy old men, this will certainly be the lead off track.
I have my songbook and my 4-track literally right here. This is great. As soon as we wrap, I'll get started.
So this might kind of dovetail a little bit with the pranks, but Erin talks in here about him as a myth maker about his own life. That would be a kind way of saying that he lied a lot about things. Yeah. What was that about? I mean, he really kind of did push that limit, did he? Didn't he?
Will, why don't you take a little bit of this one?
I mean, my time spent with him it pales in comparison with the amount of time and hours that you spent with him. But I can only say that, even during our recording session, which was the biggest swath of time I really ever got to be around him, there was a point, and I told this from the stage a couple of times, that there was a point where he said, Will, I leave a little something wherever I go, but I take a little something too. At which point I started checking my pockets and making sure I had everything, but he would sort of spin these lines like that out every once in a while. Like even when he showed up, he had these two really neat Native American necklaces, like beaded necklaces, and he hands me one and he puts one on. He's like, we'll wear these for our session. And even when we started communicating about when to start the session, it wasn't a date. With him, it was the first full moon of 2008. That's when he wanted to start the session. So, that energy was constant with him. It truly felt like him. At first, it could feel like, well, maybe he's pushing this character energy a little bit, but the more we communicated, the more we emailed, had phone calls, the more I realized, well, this is Jason, and this is where a lot of his lore, a lot of his characters, a lot of his ghosts, a lot of the energy and the subject matter of his lyrics kind of comes in. He's always writing, even when he's not physically writing, he's still spinning poetry and spinning mystery and giving you something to kind of chew on. And that was one of the immediate things that I loved about him. And I realized that it was constant with him over the session. And then, then in comes the work ethic and the willingness to be the last one to bed and the first one up, and writing and constantly going over lines and scrutinizing. It was really a unique thing to be around, and I can say that I had not been around anyone quite like that to that point. It was all his own.
There's a lot of dark things we could talk about, and I don't really want to, but I do want to bring up one thing that I'm really curious about, and that is the kind of secret nature of his alcoholism. How in the hell did he pull that off, or did he? And Jason, you might be better to answer that question because you've known him longer and had more experience with him. But the impression I got from Erin's book is that people around him had no idea until it was really, really late stages. Is that true?
Yeah. So I think that alcoholism with a big A, or addiction or something. I'm trying to decide how to frame this without going into a long
Sure. And
thing, but I'll start with this. Maybe this is unique to American myth making of bands, but we start out and like we feel grateful to get paid in a case of beer. We're told to be grateful that like you play at the bar and you get free drinks. There's this, like, I think there's a kind of insidious capitalist probably way of using the taboo to reward what was once taboo, or maybe should be, which is rock and roll. And I mean that in a good way, but like maybe not in the bad way. So like growing up in that kind of culture of like getting used to getting paid in booze, when you meet someone like Jason, and how much, I can't remember how much older he was than me, maybe 6 years older than me. I was like full on party mode Jason at the time. I didn't know when I was 26 or whatever, however old I was when, maybe I was even less than that, 24 when I met Jason, when we started playing. I didn't have problems with booze. It seemed like I could drink and party and then go to my full-time job, and it never presented a problem for me. And I hadn't gotten mature enough, maybe, or old enough, or experienced enough, or met people who had those kind of problems enough to not think it just wasn't part of the rock and roll world. I'd gone on tours. And Jason was like, when I met him, I think the reason it was surprising was like when I met him, he wasn't a teetotaler by any stretch, but like the drinking was casual. We would meet at the Irish bar to talk about the plans for the 2003 Songs Ohia tour. We'd have a beer, maybe a special Irish whiskey, because Jason was a museum guy, and he'd get excited about like the special thing on the menu, and he'd want us all to share it as like a blood brother thing, part of that myth making. So when shows were bad, like between 2003 and 2005, when we started to notice that it was problematic, I just chalked it up to him being kind of a volatile guy. Like Jason was notoriously a talker. He could get really mean. Like if he wasn't happy with the monitors, he would get upset. If he wasn't happy with like the fact that they gave us pizza instead of our $10 buyout, it felt like he was throwing the show sometimes. But as the lens sharpened, I realized that it may have been that he was getting drunk and was unable to actually play the show to his full capacity. And that kind of thing started getting more and more frequent until we got to 2005, when our name had officially changed, at least in the media. We had put out 2 records within a few months. We put out Trials and Errors and What Comes After the Blues, and there was a whole bunch of money behind promoting What Comes After the Blues. And this like kind of insanely long, I don't want to guess at it, but at least 11 weeks between US and Europe and Canada. There were quite a few moments on those tours where he was just, kind of out of his mind. In fact, there was a recording session right before that tour where I remember this distinctly. We were recording at Echo Park Studios in Bloomington. We had a good 2 days of like great recording. And there was a moment where I watched Jason go to the bathroom in this very small studio, locks the door. He comes out and he's a completely different person. Like, to the point where we were calling his wife and trying to figure out like what could he have possibly done in there. And so it was either, and part of the myth making was that he would always, I didn't smell any booze on him. I was like, all of us were drinking and stuff too, and never that much. Like we weren't that big of a partying band. So, I think we called his wife and she was like, and we were like, he told us he took medication. What medication is he on? And she's like, well, he's not on any medication. And, and it would just, things like that would happen every now and again. We started to realize it was when he was getting drunk, but we didn't know about the real, like he was good. He was he's a smart guy. And, my experience now, much older, is that smart addicts are really good at keeping the scariest parts of their addiction that would give them away hidden. I would dig out, oh, this sounds terrible, but I would dig out things like empty bottles of hand sanitizer, really small ones, from the back of the van. And I didn't know that was a thing alcoholics did. I would find little airplane bottles tucked away, hidden. Like, it's like, I never saw this happen. I didn't know it was happening, but it became very, very clear in the latter part, to the point where, again, I think we were all like worried. It was privacy issues. This is our good friend. Like he wasn't responding to us, so we believed him. Like we would ask, we would sort of confront him about it in like the most supportive way. To the point where, those harrowing 2009 tours, were just watching his health diminish so fast on the first and only bus tour we ever did. He wasn't, like Will said, he got up first and went to bed last. That he kind of had trouble sleeping in a lot of ways. So you put him on a moving vehicle, high anxiety situation. Our drummer had just gone to grad school, so we had just like reformulated the band. There was a lot going on. It was clear, like we were hiding bottles from him because we at this point, I think we still thought that he was just unable to hold his liquor. But then I think at that point it was like, no, 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 this is far more than that. And it took really being like living it's not like we hadn't lived together forever in those years, but like living on a bus with someone is different. And watching his health deteriorate, like it's impossible to describe. But like by the end of that first leg of that tour, we had to help him in and out of the bus. And he was a young man, so no, I think he hit it really well. I mean, it's a long answer, but like we were around him, and given how we had grown up and what we were used to playing bars, and the fact that everybody else in the band was able to do that without stopping, or like was able to do that and stop is what I mean. But Jason was able to hide that he couldn't. I have felt guilty about that for however long it's been. I mean, I've learned to see that as a thing that I couldn't have known, and but I have also, and now I know how to recognize it when other people are maybe in search of help without knowing that they need it or that they even want it. But that was the first time. And, Jason is the big brother, like big brothers teach you a lot. And he's like the smartest, most myth making, biggest brother there was. And that combination of smart, myth, and love makes it hard to see the truth sometimes. And I think that, and I don't feel validated by the fact that no one else saw it either, because we all would confront him when the shows were bad because of drinking, and we knew it, but we didn't know the extent. We didn't know that the real issues, and none of us had really ever dealt with it before.
Yeah, so sad. Well, let's turn to something positive as we kind of wrap up here. unfair question. You have to pick one song. Favorite Jason Molina song.
You make me answer this first?
Both of you. I want to hear both of you.
God, right on the spot.
Will already has his in mind, I'll bet.
Yeah, 7 of them just flew right by the window.
Yeah. I
I'll
know
go
it's
with
not
too.
fair.
Yeah, this is, for today, I'll say Just Be Simple.
Yeah, I think today, and maybe it's because I was listening to it on the way to work, I am going to say Blue Chicago Moon.
For today and yesterday and tomorrow, I will say Whippoorwill. And that version that you guys did at the end of the Houston show, wow, it's just incredible.
That was one of the ones that flew by the window for me. And just because it's unfair of me to give you 2 more, I'm also going to say Shenandoah from Josephine and why not? Why not say it? North Star Blues from What Comes After the Blues.
Great.
No mention of Riding with the Ghost.
Oh, quietly there was over here. Yeah.
Is it too obvious?
No.
So many good ones. So many good ones. All right. Let's finish with a couple of unfair questions. What are you reading right now? Or recently?
I'm reading the new poetry book of Silas House, actually. I'm kind of going down a poetry wormhole for a little while, and the new Silas House poetry book is fantastic.
Did you know that I have another podcast that's poetry specific?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because I've had some really cool guests on there. Jason, what are you reading or have read recently?
I'm reading 2 things right now. I'm finishing up the 6-volume My Struggle by Karl Ove Knausgård, Norwegian writer. And I just started the 6th volume on the Circulation of Volume series by, I'm not really sure how to pronounce this person's name, but Solveig Ball. So I'm reading only Scandinavian literature at the moment.
Wow.
And yeah, if you haven't, both of you, if you haven't read that Karl Ove Knausgård stuff, I have not. And just speaking of him, I need to get in touch with him because apparently he named one of his recent novels after a Molina lyric, which is blowing my mind because I, of course, eventually had to Google if there was any way I could meet the guy. And it's like, is this my way? Like, is this it?
Okay, what are you listening to? What's on your turntable?
I just got done listening to a double album by Ben Hackett, Athens guy, multi-instrumentalist. He passed it along to me a couple of months ago, and I've been listening to Ben's work a good bit.
Besides the live recordings that we just made, I've been listening to this record by this Asheville musician named Tanner York. And he just put out a record this year called Welcome to the Shower. I think he graduated from college the day he came to see us in Asheville, but I've been listening to his record all year and it's mind-blowingly good. Really like power pop, but also clearly Beach Boys influenced, and he likes weird tape loop stuff. So I highly recommend it.
Cool.
All right.
Okay, well, what can we expect from you guys? Do you have plans? There's a couple of dates already on the books, right, for 26? Any more recording in plans?
Goodness.
How do we answer?
I don't even know. We have the April shows in the Northeast. I'm gonna make another solo record at the end of the summer, and there's a whole lot of 400 unit stuff about to start in about a week and a half. And I don't know. We'll see beyond that. There's spaces to pepper things in as we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, those and get on like if 3 of those 4 April shows are about to be sold out. So that which is exciting. And as Will said in an email to all of the management, also encouraging. It's very nice to know that people want to come and memorialize in a joyful and tearful way with us.
Yeah.
And God, the fact that we get to play and live in these songs is it just feels so. I mean, it feels so good to revisit these songs.
It is a beautiful thing. Anything else you guys want to say before we sign off?
I don't know. I miss you, Jason. Let's go hang out again.
Oh yeah, Lazy Parrot's
More
open.
racket.
We can, yeah, let's do it. Will, I miss you too. We should talk. Maybe we'll only talk in podcasts from here
I'll
on
meet
out.
you at the Lazy Parrot. I'll see you at the Lazy Parrot. If I start driving now, I'll be there by Friday evening.
It's open till 10, man. I'll see you then. Half price beer.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
I wish you all the best. Have a great year. And thanks again. I'm grateful to you for doing this.
Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for having us along.
Yeah,
Take care.
thanks so much.
All right.
See ya.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.